Hello, I'm a BX Toycat and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I have some more Geography of Toycat for you all. It's a second channel series where I talk about geography and the world and stuff. And today I wanted to talk about something about the world which I guess confuses a lot of people, and that is similarly named countries, because there's a billion countries and many of the names they pick are entirely unique. Like, no one ever gets like Russia and China confused, no one ever gets like Vietnam and Ukraine confused, but there are a lot of countries that have pretty similar names, and you have to kind of wonder, like, why is that? So in today's video I'll be explaining some of the differences, at least, because I know I learned a few of them, and maybe you do want to do too. So with that said, let's get straight into the first one, and this is the one that used to really get me back before I knew anything about the world, because Austria and Australia have really similar names, and I really couldn't work it out for the longest time as to like why that is. Is there any relation? Maybe they're nearby. But yeah, as it turns out, Austria and Australia are two of the furthest away countries you can get in the world. You know, there's Australia down there in the southern hemisphere, and here is Austria. So how did they end up with similar names? And this case is actually purely by coincidence. There's no like grand scheme of like, well, you see, one country was, the Austrians actually invaded Australia or something. No, what it actually is Austria used to be a part of Germany, and when it was a part of Germany, it was called like the Eastern Territory, and German was like Osteric or something. Osteric, when you convert that to English, becomes Austria, and Australia is was actually it comes from the Latin name of like the Australian god or something. I know it's a Latin word for like south that turns into Australia, and as it just so happens, both the conversion of Osteric and Australia from those two things into English gives you Austria and Australia, which again is just a unique thing to those languages, which is something kind of interesting, I find. Anyway, the second example of this isn't just there. It's actually another European one, because it's someone that actually people ask me about all the time when they hear I've been to Slovenia. They're like, oh, is that the one in Central Europe, or vice versa or something? Because everyone's heard of Czechoslovakia, right? Which is we used to be a country forming of the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Not quite so many people have heard of Slovenia, besides like maybe Trump's wife is from there. That's maybe everything people know about Slovenia. But Slovenia, like I've mentioned a billion times before, very nice country, and basically Slovenia is known for being similar to Slovakia, because they both have again, like, you look at their names and they've only got two characters different. It's en as opposed to ak. So how does this happen? How do two countries so close to each other end up in this situation where their names are so similar that even like heads of state will address things to the wrong country? And funnily enough, every month they meet up just to trade mail, because they make the mistake so much, and it's kind of fun. So how does this happen? You might be curious. Basically, Slovakia, again, it's like half of the Czechoslovakia country, wasn't really an issue because it was all one thing, and Slovenia used to be part of Yugoslavia, and until there's the whole war thing you can go into. Basically, it wasn't until like 25 years ago that both these countries even existed, and it just so happened that their regions have similar names, again, only in English. In their own languages, it's entirely a little thing, but it is just a English kind of translation of how you get to Slovakia and how you get to Slovenia. So yeah, that's how that kind of happens, and these are just two examples of how the language thing comes into it. And actually, the next example is to do with all of these countries right here. So there's Uzbekistan, there's Turkmenistan, there's Kazakhstan, there's Kyrgyzstan, there's Tajik. You can see the pattern. They all have stans in them. Why is that? Basically, I think it's from the Persian, stan, which is to do with like place off. And in most languages, the word stan has some meaning to do with, place, or like for instance, in Russia it vaguely means city, I think, or settlement. In German, I think it means like an apartment building. It means like a place where people live. So yeah, basically the first part of the word is the name of the people group. So these are Kazakhs, these are Uzbeks, these are Turks, these are Afghans, and I don't know what you'd call those. I don't know if that's the correct term to say out loud, but yeah, basically these are all those groups of people, and then the stan means place off. So the reason they all have similar names is because stan is just like the place name, kind of how in Europe everything is called something land. There is England, there is Scotland, there is Ireland, there is Switzerland, and Netherlands. I don't know if that's the same one, but yeah, basically there's lots of countries which have the same suffix, and that's just because stan is like kind of like their land or their place off, and that's why there are like 7 countries, all very close by, all with messy borders. Again, I've gone into this before, all nearby, that have similar names like that. So yeah, fun little fact about that. So that's the first reason lots of countries have similar names, but the second reason is when they're named after a similar namesake. So for instance, Niger and Nigeria, these two countries right here, are both named after the Niger River, which they both have to go through. And yeah, that's for the record, Niger, horrible name for well, not horrible name for a country, but I don't think most people pronounce it correctly, is all I'm saying. You just look at it and you're like, that's a weird name for a place. But yeah, they're both named after the river Niger, which again, Nigeria and Niger. That's just river, and that's just river Iya. So that's how they have such similar names. And there's a few examples of that around the world that you can be like, yeah, they're named after the same thing, such as Sudan and South Sudan, or South Korea and North Korea. obviously, this kind of makes sense. So, yeah, as well as that, though, there's also then kind of like countries which split up from not necessarily split up, but came from a region and then kind of kept the name. So there's 3 countries in Africa, all called something Guinea. So there is, just over here, there is Guinea, then there's Guinea-Bissau, I hope that's how you say it, and then there is Equatorial Guinea, and then, funnily enough, all the way across the world, there is Papua New Guinea. So how do these all get the Guinea suffix? So the reason for that is because, as I believe, there's no fixed way, no fixed place that Guinea came from. Some people use it to refer to all of Africa, but it's generally accepted that Guinea means, West Africa, or was the term used for West Africa by British/French/whatever colonizers. So when all of these countries, this used to be all of Guinea, so all the places were named something Guinea, and when they went independent, they decided to keep those names. So we have Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, and Equatorial Guinea. However, this is the one that really made me go like, what went wrong there? Because the reason that, Papua New Guinea is named that way, and for some reason has kept that name, is because when someone explored it, it was a Spanish explorer, when he explored the islands, he was like, these look like people from Guinea. It was like, oh yeah, look at those, dark-colored people. I guess they must be Guineans, and therefore it became Papua, I guess, New Guinea. I always call it Papa, like, Papa. But yeah, Papua New Guinea just has a similar name because the natives looked like Africans, which is, I don't get that at all. That's a weird one to hear, but that is the story behind Papua New Guinea. So, yeah, as well as, Papua New Guinea and all those ones, what other examples are there? I guess you can go for a whole bunch more. You can be like, let's look at Guyana and French Guiana, which, again, you can probably work out, like, this is actually technically a part of France, and, this is like the independent country. There's a whole bunch of examples around the world of countries that have similar names, and there's very few cases where it's not, so I guess there's, like, 3 main reasons. Either they're named after the same thing or a similar thing, so Nigeria, or, Equatorial Guinea and Guinea itself. Either they just have a similar suffix, or like they're named something similar in their own languages, such as the Stan countries. Sometimes it's just pure coincidence, though, such as Slovakia and Slovenia, or such as Australia and Austria. And the key point I want to get, the key point I want to get across here is that lots of countries have somewhat similar names, but it's rarely like this grand, like, there's a cool connection. It usually is just like, there's something weird about those. If they're close together, I missed one. DR Congo and Republic of Congo. The reason they're so confusing and similar is because they're both from, one was from the French part of Congo, one was from the Belgian Congo, and when they split up, they got different names, but they want to all get the Congo thing. Same with China and the Republic of China. You can just go through so many examples and just get to the same point of like, coincidence, passive aggressiveness, or just because they're named after the same thing. So yeah, I hope you did all enjoy this video. It was a short one, I guess, but I hope that you learned something about the world. I personally was, mind blown by the Austria and Australia thing. I really thought there was some grand conspiracy behind them, but nope, pure coincidence. So yeah, bye.